People have felt presence and her presence and seen things, here, and I've never seen anything, but I've definitely felt like someone was with me, and not in a bad way, but just kind of keeping an eye on her house, like just like if I was a worker for her, you know. So, and she never pushed me down the stairs. So. In recent research, I think that I may have a longer connection to this place with my family owning a hardware store in Lawrence, and the possibility of some of the hardware in this actual home came from my family hardware store, or lumber, or even if there's one nail in this house that came from that hardware store, I feel a huge connection to it. I'd probably say the attic still, because it's just you can see the whole property from either the windows or the porch above us. We talk about Cora often, who was one of the original owners of the home, and it just feels like that's where she would hang out, just to enjoy the property, after a long day of dealing with the orchards and the horses and things like that. And the funny thing is that it wasn't there. She never would have been up there to hang out. There was a widow's watch that was almost completely unused. The attic was completely filled with soot. But I think that if it was in that form in her time, it would have been her favorite place in the house, and it draws me there. As a profession, I am an uprigger, stage manager, climber. I do production for concerts all over the country, large festivals. I'm the operations manager for a festival in Michigan called Electric Forest. Basically anything to do with stage production. I've done it for 22 years now. I started doing security when I was 15 and just figured out everything I could from there on. Every type of artist you could think of over the past 22 years, of everyone from like George Clinton to Bruce Springsteen and Pearl Jam and Billy Joel, and so many of the head artists, and got to tour Europe last year with Logic. Basically whoever really I fit in well with and where I'm needed is where I like to go. I try and kind of pick and choose the gigs that I want to do more than just have to do anymore. Kent called me and told me that they were being honored and all these things, and told me that it was because of my work, or that my work was part of it. That was a huge reflection on me, and made me very proud that I've put forth the effort I did here. My name's Clayton Harris. I've been here for probably about the past 5 years off and on. I work in a summer job, so I usually take my off seasons and work here at the farm. And that's kind of my position in my regular job. So I build a platform and scaffolding for him so we could continue painting on the house. Probably 6 months or so after that, Kent called me and said, "Hey Clayton, you want to come work on some cars?" And I said, "Sure, I love to work on cars." And I came out and I did some work on a car for him. And he's like, "Hey, I've got stuff to do in the house. Do you want to work on stuff in the house?" And I said, "Sure, I'll work on stuff in the house." And that was kind of the start of my adventure here. Kent would have a project or an idea, and we would start on it, and I would put in my 2 cents or try and figure out the issues that come along with doing restoration on a home of this age. With the house being different heights in 2 corners, or the walls being warped, or having bows, and working around those issues was a challenge that I enjoyed, so I kept coming back. Essentially the only finished room when I started was Kent and Olga's bedroom, and it was just finished enough to be livable, honestly. A little over 5 years I've been working on the house. The added decor, getting the paintings up, and getting the furniture in place, and all those things, really, the whole picture came together, and it was just mind-blowing, because I had seen it in a final state, but not in a finished state. A lot of it's Kent and Olga, honestly. Their drive is something that I strive for every day, honestly. I've never met 2 people that worked as hard as they do. And it's all self-motivated. There's no one saying, "Hey, you got to do this." They get up, they make their list, and they get it done. And if they don't get it done, they work on it the next day until it's done. And in that process, you find new projects, and they work on those until they're done. If Olga wants something, it happens. And that's one thing that I enjoyed, was that if she wanted something done, we could picture it and we could figure it out and we could make it. Or if we wanted something done, she could come in and level us out and say, no, you need to do this. You guys are getting a little extravagant here. Let's simplify it and make it, fit the house. Ken and I, our brains kind of run wild occasionally. It's been a great process here, and I love this place, and I feel connected to this place. Really, it's a kind of a cumulative of everything. My love of this property, the enjoyment of getting to do work that is challenging to me and is always different. Like I said, there's not a straight wall in this house, so you're always having to figure out a little way to finesse and to make something fit that may have fit when it was built, but doesn't necessarily fit in the rebuild, or remanufacturing something to fit in the rebuild. So I really love the challenge of it too. So it's been an overall for me, and every time I come back here, I feel comfortable. Kent and Olga make me feel at home. Olga asks me if I'm hungry. What can they do for me? The project of love. Honestly, it became a project of love because I do love the home, and I love Kent and Olga very much. I started here with a friend of mine, Glenn, and he was painting on the front of the house. They needed someone who could build scaffolding and get to the higher reaches of the house. The condition of the house when I first came, Kent and Olga had done a lot of work to it, so that it was in progress. Like I say, they were painting the outside. We were replacing a lot of the shake shingle on the outside, doing the windows, all the storm windows, and every piece of glazing that was damaged, and anything that just over the past 100 years had deteriorated. We were very adamant about making sure that it was done right and that it was put back into its proper form, because otherwise it was just going to continue to deteriorate and fall down. And they wanted this house to live, as long as it can. Progressed through the whole house, as you can see. It just it became a huge transformation that I never anticipated when we started, honestly. I figured, we'd get some drywall up, we'd get some things done, and then it turned into something totally different. It was pretty astounding, honestly, because it was in such disarray when I first came. The floors were pieced together, and Kent had to jack up the whole house because it was settling in different spots, and the whole east end of the house was a workshop, and there was no carpeting in most of the house. It has really progressed from something that I would have never expected it to come to this. It was in such disarray and shambles, and a lot of spots collapsing, and the wood just deteriorating, and to the amount of work that we had to put into it to get it to this was pretty amazing. So it's been a long process and a huge transformation in my eyes, anyways. Off and on, like I say, through the seasons when I wasn't working full-time on the road, I'd come here on the days that I had available when I wasn't doing shows, and just work on whatever project that they had for us. Since I work seasonally, I kind of was gone for the final part of the project, and so I got to come back. I came and visited Kent and Olga, and Olga, as always, walked me through the house to show me the new things that they had done. And we were very close to a finishing point when I had left. A lot of the pieces are handcrafted, and I mean handcrafted down to sanding with your fingers in a nook and cranny, or shaping with a gouge, or planing something out that is rough and unfinished, and then bringing it to a final product. The biggest project of my career here was the attic. When we went into the attic, it was covered in soot. Bare rafters and roofing, and now it is transformed into one of the brightest and cleanest and most comfortable places in the house. We added a full bathroom to the attic so that you wouldn't have to leave the space to go to the bathroom or disrupt anyone else to go to use the restroom. We remanufactured and redid the windows and like I said, hand-formed casings and everything like that. If we didn't have the original piece because it was deteriorated or gone, we would make an exact matching piece to that by hand, and try and stick to the craftsmanship that the original builders had. A lot of things in the upstairs that really stuck out to me. Totally reforming a door casing that looks like it should have been there the whole time. Kent and Olga had done a lot of the appreciation that they show me for the work that I did here. In the process of doing all the work here, it was just little bits here and there, and you don't really think of the overall. And I learned excessively from Kent. Like, I started doing restoration really young. My uncle was doing historic restoration in Colorado, and so I got to do some cabins and things with him. And then I just did construction for a long time, where I'd build stuff, or I would look at, like Mom always said, you break it, so you got to fix it. So if I broke something, I'd learn how to fix it. And it was very much like that here. This house was broken, and we just fixed it. They kind of make the joke of turning trash to candy, or poo to candy, and in a lot of the places in this house we turned poo to candy. It wasn't just polishing; it was remaking, reforming in its original form.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've been hugely blessed, and I mean, it took a lot. Like I said, I've been doing it since I was 15, and just destroyed my body and worked as hard as I could to get where I'm at now, and it's kind of come to the point where I'm getting to the point where I want to be. I've seen how it works so many times, it just comes automatically. It's like,
wow, that's awesome.
So it's great. I really enjoy it, and music was the whole reason I got into to it. So it's kept me getting to go to shows for free. I could never, I couldn't always afford to go to every show I wanted to go see, but once I learned that if I was working, I could get in free, get paid to be there, and still get to see the show, I was all about it.